Hello and welcome to week 2. Sorry I'm a little bit late in getting this video out. Got my family all packed, and today they drove down to the sand dunes uh, without me to go camping in the cold, frigid evenings. Although I really wanted to go down there. I also wanted to get week 2 and all my summer classes sort of up and running so that week 3, when I drive to California next week, hopefully we'll have less class pressures, right? So if you have questions with anything about the course or accessing anything, this is the week to iron it out. I will be available all of next week when I'm in California visiting family, so I'll have access to Wi-Fi. I just may not be able to reply as quickly as I will be able to this week. I'd like to thank you all again for indulging me on our site visits last week. It was enlivening to me to be in those two different spaces because I think we get a lot of, and even if you've been in them before, a much different take on some of the stuff that we're going to be reading, a take on religious experience, and even coming into those religious sites and talking with the folks or experiencing what they're doing, just with the concept of the sacred in our minds. So how is it that we're seeing sacredness represented, right? Experiencing that in person I find to be a more powerful thing than reading it in a book or on a website or Wikipedia or whatever, right? For this and the subsequent video lectures, what I want to do is give you a little bit of an overview of the religious tradition from this perspective. I already introduced on day 1 last Tuesday Thich Nhat Hanh a little bit. So he's a Zen Buddhist from Vietnam, exiled from his home and community during the Vietnam War, and he's been a prolific presence of peace throughout the world ever since then, or even during then, right? But ever since, for sure. He's going to reference things, and so if you don't have a basic mechanical understanding of some sort of what I call a 30,000 foot overview, looking down at the forest, understandings of the contours of Buddhism, you're going to miss a lot in going home. Central there, and central to sort of any sort of class you might take on world religions, it's going to give you a more didactic, this is what Buddhism is, this is what Hinduism is. We'll start Buddhism with the Four Noble Truths. And those Four Noble Truths are very, very simple realizations, and these apparently are the truths that the Buddha or Siddhartha Gautama, before or the night that he became the Buddha or became enlightened, truths that he realized that led to his awakening. And not just realized them, but embraced them, became okay with them. The first is that there is suffering in the world, right? There is suffering. And I'll explain suffering in just a minute. The second one, and I may get these out of order, or I may forget one. There's only 4, I should totally remember these. The second one is that suffering is inescapable. Right? Everyone's going to suffer, and in its inescapability, if that's a word, suffering is also, if there's culpability, if there's fault, it's my fault. But I doubt you hear many Buddhists talk about suffering as being a fault, except that. Actually, it might be put this way. This is how Thich Nhat Hanh would put it, I think. Suffering is a result of my desires. But there is a way out. And that's the third one. There's a promise. There is a way out. And the fourth noble truth is that by following the noble eightfold path, by living one's life intentionally in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha, right? One can make that progress and indeed achieve Buddhahood, him or herself. So it's possible. We are on this sort of cosmically, this wheel of samsara that's turning, and you'll see this in any Buddhist setting or many Buddhist settings as a wheel. It looks like like an old-timey ship wheel, right? And there's 8 pegs, I don't know what you call them, around the wheel, meaning these are the Eightfold Paths. These are the things that we're going to practice as a community and individually. This is what we're going to orient ourselves around when we enter a meditation service on a weekly or a daily basis. These 8 things. So give your Wikipedia sort of the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. You'll find those things listed out. No stealing. Well, I'm not gonna go over them now, but if you have a chance, have a look at those things. Thich Nhat Hanh in the book, and I may have skipped the chapter for us, goes over the Eightfold Path, and he gives them instead of a don't do this, he gives them a positive articulation. Do this instead. So it's not just no stealing. It's a respect and honoring things that are not yours. Things that are the property of one's neighbor, right? For example, right? But going back to the idea of suffering. So many times we'll hear, and even as the Four Noble Truths are so often articulated, that this idea is suffering, and it can be a little misleading because the idea of suffering might be a little too small, at least in our common U.S. understanding of what it means to suffer. And I know that's multifarious. Another word that might help or nuance our understanding of the First Noble Truth or all the Noble Truths, right, is not there is suffering, but maybe there is change or changeableness or something along these lines. Temporality. And here's why this concept might do more work for us in understanding the Four Noble Truths. If suffering comes from me as a result of my desire, right? Why is it that I'm desiring something? Well, many times because I think it's going to make me happy. It's going to bring pleasure, joy, or fulfillment or something. But one of the things that I run up against is I have this experience of happiness or joy, let's say when my children were born. Or, I mean, I could use any example, but that's just the first one that came to my mind. If I think that moment can last, I'm going to hold on to it. So I'm going to take pictures, or I didn't videotape it. I actually didn't take pictures when they came out. I didn't want, well, whatever. Sorry, you don't need that image. But if I think that that's going to last and that the joy that I experienced in those moments is enough, I'm going to hold on to them tightly. I desire them because they brought me happiness. But the thing is my kids have grown. And I learn what it means to be sleep deprived when they're infants. I learn what it means to be frustrated with potty training. I've learned what it means to be frustrated when their little wills and their own desires come out and conflict with mine. If I hold on to, or the tighter I hold on to that joy of their first moment, I bring suffering upon myself because they keep changing, and indeed I'm changing as well. That moment can still be joyful, but I can't put all my hope for joy there. I've got to move on and embrace the other moments. And indeed, and this is one of the paradoxical Zen sort of moments, I have to learn to embrace them and let them go simultaneously. Embrace them because in this particular present moment, to be present with them is to give them my full attention. To be mindful with my kids or my spouse or my friends, right, is to be present, which requires me to be a body, which requires them to be a body, which requires a relationship and all the stuff that goes with it. And it's living in that present moment, which requires us really to let go of all other things, accept that moment. And this is the hardest thing. And this is why people practice meditation for lifetimes, because it's not an easy thing, even though it sounds very simple. Learn to let go. And the peace that comes from that release is the journey towards enlightenment. Does that make any sense? I don't want to be cliche. I mean, there's 1,000 cliche ways to say this. You know, if you love something, you let it free, right? Sting had a song about this, I believe, right? And there, I mean, that's definitely an element, and that's tied up in there. Let me leave you with one more example, and hopefully this one will help, and I'll leave you to our discussions for this week. When I sat down on the chair I'm sitting in, I was quite comfortable. I made sure I was comfortable because I was sitting here and I don't know how many times I'm going to have to record these things. If I hold on to this chair, if I don't move, if I sit here and I think that I'm still going to be comfortable in 24 hours, I'm deluding myself. And if I do it, right, I'm going to sit here in 24 hours, I'm going to be hurting. My body isn't made to sit in one place for at least in a chair like for a long time. I got to be moving around. If I think that I'm still going to be happy sitting here after 24 days, I'm going to not be able to walk. My legs will begin to atrophy, right? And in 24 years or 200 years, I will be just bones holding as tightly on to the idea that this once made me happy. And looking back, someone would say he was deluding himself. How could he ever think that change wouldn't come, that he would get uncomfortable? Even if he got uncomfortable, he knew he was happy once, he's going to try to hold on to that again. The tighter we hold on, the more suffering we bring upon ourselves. Can we, through the communal and personal practices of meditation, of mindfulness, of these trainings that Thich Nhat Hanh will try to talk to us about, get a handle on our desire, realize where true happiness really comes from, realizing what it means to truly be present in a moment, so that I don't have to look back after sitting in this chair for 20 years and kick myself and say, you're silly. Why did you think that that would last? Obviously it won't. Thich Nhat Hanh uses the image of a ladder. Our concepts are this way too, not just physical things, not just relationships. Our idea of God can be this way, if you have one. To make any progress up a ladder, you have to let go of one rung, one concept, one idea, to grab the next rung. The practice of Buddhism is learning to let go. You need the ladder to climb. That's inevitable. The tension is ultimately we got to let go of the ladder and still go up. I'm still trying to figure out what that means. Be sure when you post your replies, if you've made it this far in this video, I'm sorry it's so long, give me your page numbers. Give me your references from the text so that I can see that you're engaging and grappling with the text itself. And with that, I'll talk to you soon. Happy discussing.